Well, welcome everyone. I wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit with Heather Clarke, who is our founding director. She's written 2 books and a journal, right? A journal goes with the 2 books. And so I wanted her to just share a little bit about the journey of writing her books, but also some specific stories, because I think, I think even with the title, and she's going to share, I'm going to let her do all of that, but it's like, we seek outside ourselves for answers, and so much of what we're wondering and questioning, we actually already have the answers to. So Heather, tell us a little bit about your books.
Okay. I for years and years and years have been getting messages, like screaming in my ear to write the book. And I didn't know what I was going to write about, but I finally just started keeping topics of things. Like maybe I could just write a little chapter about different things, not necessarily a little novel, with a plot that follows everything. It's just different, like little essays. And so then finally, in 2018, I don't know, I think it was 18, they literally screamed, write the book, So I go, okay. So I just pull out one of the topics and I start to write, and I couldn't write a chapter. I just could write a little bit about it, and I couldn't get a whole chapter, like 6 to 10 pages or something. So I went with a friend of mine up into the woods in northern Arizona, which I love to go do, and she's supposed to write a book too. So we're sitting up there, and we talked for several hours, and then we got split up and went on our own side of the place where we were. And she downloaded her entire the outline of her book, and then I sat there, and my message was to write stories with nothing more than 2 pages. And so, like, just get to the bottom line. Here's the topic. Write about it a little bit, get to the bottom line, and move on. Because I feel like people don't have time to read books. Like a novel. Like you're writing novels, so people are going to read a novel. But all these other books, you just want to, you get an email, and if it takes too long to read, you're not going to read it. So anyway, so that's what I did, and I just started writing, and then all this stuff just kept coming through, and I just had to sit down and get it in writing, and I write it actually with my hand. I don't do it on the computer. I do it by hand, and and it just kind of comes through, and I just write it down, and then, so that's how it all started. So one person told me one time that I needed to stop going to workshops and seminars and all this, because she said, you could be teaching a class because you've been to so much of it, because I'm a workshopaholic. And so she says, you already know this. Well, that was one of my stories in the book, the first book, and this is what it looks like. It's called, is that backwards? Does that look backwards?
Right. Yeah, it's good.
It's good. Okay. Anyway, so you already know this, because like we really do already know all this stuff. It's just we've kind of forgotten it. So these 2 books, I've got 2 of them. The second one is You Already Know This Too, and they're 44 little stories, nothing more than 2 pages long, and they're all things that a lot of it's kind of aimed for somebody who isn't really quite aware, not really awake yet, and not aware that you've got guidance with you all the time. And so it's helping people wake up that way. And then for people like us who do know that, it's just a reminder of a lot of things. Like, yeah, we already know that. It's just a reminder. So that's what they all are, just little stories.
But most of them, if I remember correctly, because I will tell you, I read your first one, but not your second one. You have 2 of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the second one, you did a little play on words, didn't you? You just put 2.
Yeah, You Already Know This Too.
2, right.
T-O.
So
I started with T-W and it didn't sound right, so I did T-O.
They're all personal stories though, right?
Pretty much, yeah. A lot of things that I've gone through in my life, and just kind of just thoughts. Yeah, I guess it's stuff that's happened in my life that I've, it's come up, and I thought, oh, I could share that with somebody and help them understand. And
would you say that a lot of them were sort of your life lessons?
Yeah.
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 So many of us are learning similar life lessons, right? I mean, yeah. So share a story or 2
okay.
from your books.
All right. This is in my second volume, and it's called Stop Arguing with What Is. And of course, you really are total into that. There was so I'll read this, and then we can talk a little bit about it. So at the top, I always have a little statement up at the top, and then I got the story, and then a little bottom line, little thought. So at the beginning, it says, we spend a lot of time expecting people to be someone other than who they are. Like, I had a certain family member that I was always expecting him to be somebody he isn't, and it just doesn't work. So Byron Katie wrote a powerful book called Loving What Is, and I highly recommend it. It will take a lot of the stress and frustration out of your life from being irritated when someone you know keeps doing the same annoying thing over and over and over. We've lived in Phoenix off and on since 1965, and we think it's funny how the heat is such a big topic of conversation. It's hot here in the summer, and it just is. It does it every single year. It never fails. So let's just get on with it. Just move on. We will not be able to change it. I often say it isn't so bad as long as you don't have to work outside. I really feel bad for roofers and landscapers. They start work as soon as it's light enough so they can be done by noon when it starts to really heat up. Imagine how stressful it would be to be homeless here in the summer. Of course, it would be stressful being homeless anywhere. So who is doing something habitually in your life that's driving you absolutely nuts? Your teenage son who leaves the toilet seat up every time in spite of your constant nagging? Your mother who interrupts you and fills in the end of your sentence every time you get together? If you want to get rid of some unnecessary stress from your life, it's time to make a shift and choose another way to look at the issue. In fact, your mother has always interrupted you, and she probably will continue. Accept that flaw and accept her for the way she is. If your son leaves the toilet seat up, you've got a few choices. You can continue to be irritated that he doesn't hear you, or you can ignore it and leave the seat up, or you can put it down yourself. What brings you the most peace? The main goal is for you to feel good. Our expectations can cause a lot of conflict in our lives, and the truth is, this is who I am. This is who your husband is. This is who your friend is. It just is. Accept everyone and yourself for who he or she is and relax. It's not your job to change everybody. And the bottom line is that you are your only project. So we were just discussing this in our Course in Love group, right? About accepting yourself. So it's so much easier to accept yourself than to love yourself. Because if you've done some really stupid stuff and you think, you really, really messed up on that, well, if you can accept yourself, you just know this is just who you are.
Mm-hmm. And we can't undo, we can't undo what's already been done. So that self-hatred, self-loathing, guilt, all of that doesn't have its place, right?
Right.
So yeah, it's interesting because one of the things I always say is if I could figure out how to change someone, I would have bottled that shit up and sold it.
You can retire.
Totally. Because how many times have we said about our significant others or our children, that there are things that I wish he would change or she would change or they would change. And so, yeah, the story about it just is, you get to decide how you're going to perceive that, right? I think that's pretty powerful.
I don't know what's going on here. This phone, I'm turning the phone off and it just started up like it. Anyway, yeah.
It happens.
So anyway, so I learned that, I spent years and years trying to change my grandson, and it is not possible. And so finally we just get away from each other, so he's probably very happy and I'm very happy and everything's fine, but we're just not good together. So that's okay.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I think, as you mentioned, it's one of those simple concepts.
I don't know what's going on. It's BTS, I'm just.
Yes, they're trying to come in.
I have no clue why that's coming on, but anyway.
Oh, that's funny. I think it's a very simple concept, the idea of just allowing things to be as they are, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's also very complex. I think all of these ideas are. It's complex to actually be able to remember that, live that, have that experience as you move through life, right?
Yeah.
And I guess that's the practice. The practice is that awareness. I went into wanting to change or fix.
Yeah. Because you think if you can change them, they would make it so much better for them. But no, they need to have their own path. You need to get out of their way and let them have their experiences.
And I think that with our own children, mine's still young, but even like adult children, grandchildren, as you mentioned, it's like you feel like it's like you clearly see the problem. You clearly see what you could do instead of this. And why do you keep doing that, right? we want to protect, we do it as, we do it because we love. Um,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, it's their path, it's their journey. We got to let it be what as it is.
Yeah. So it's a good lesson for yourself to learn to just let go, and you don't have to be in control of everything, and you can step aside, and you don't have to be the general manager of the universe and
Yep.
fix everything. So yeah.
All right, so tell us another story.
Okay. Uh, okay. The other one is called I'm an infinite being. Actually, everyone's an infinite being. So this is in volume 2, page 82. Okay. So this is, I'm an infinite being and I can handle this. Your ego does not want you to know how powerful you are. You get placed in the middle of chaos so you can show what it means to be a peacemaker. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. When you're an infinite being, you can handle it. After my first son was born, I went through some tough times with postpartum depression. I was so tired, I thought it would be such a relief to just walk in front of a truck and end it all. When he was about 2 months old, I was guided to a bookstore and found the book, How to Live 365 Days a Year. As I read it, I learned I had a choice to be happy or sad, and happy was so much better. Without realizing, I remembered who I really was, an infinite being, and an infinite being would not linger in depression very long. I chose to be happy, and I have never been seriously depressed again. And he just turned 50, so that's pretty good. I was unable to sleep through the night for years because Ed, my husband, was so sick, and yet I was able to handle it. You do what you have to do. As an infinite being, I was able to stay strong. Now that Ed is gone, I'm here in the house by myself, although I have a roommate now, but when I wrote this, I was by myself. And that's okay because I'm making a breakthrough. It will not be more than I can handle. Just like when I'm at the dentist, when the Novocaine hasn't completely blocked the pain, I can decide to get more and more shots or just suck it up and take in a little pain. I can suck it up now, be with the pain, and just experience it. We all used to be healers. This is why when we hurt ourselves, we put our hand on the wound to make it feel better. We are infinite beings. You are needed to help heal, and the time is now. You have no limitations except what you impose on yourself. You are infinite. You can use your ego in positive ways. Bring it with you on your spiritual path. It will give you the guts to do what you need to do. Don't give up and lose faith. What you are waiting for is right around the corner. Keep priming the pump. The water is just about to start flowing. Things are moving very fast. We are being swept along like a leaf going down a creek. We bump into things on the side, hesitate a little, regroup, and move on in a new direction. Remember, humanity is evolving. All this perceived chaos is like labor pains. We are going through labor, birthing a new humanity. And oh yeah, you're an infinite being. You can handle this. And Debbie Ford's statement, she had one statement, is what if you really are amazing? So yeah, so when I get, we all pop into the typical human stuff of getting upset and feeling hurt, get your feelings hurt or whatever it is, and you just kind of get down or something's hanging on you. And then I just remind myself to remember who the heck I really am, because we're here on a really big purpose to help humanity right now. Like we're on the ground crew. There's no accident that we're here. So we just need to remember who we are and let all that, so we can let all that other stuff go. It's actually doubt trying to pull us off the bus, and we just need to not agree to let it happen.
Yeah, this is actually how I kind of move through my world. It's my, personal experience in this physical form.
Mm-hmm.
It's I'm very well aware of what's happening, right? I'm very well aware, and I'm in education, so I'm very well aware of the implications of what's happening now from like 5 different perspectives coming in. And I think that I'm very passionate about things. And so there are experiences that I have that I think, like I said, can provoke big emotions, right? But at the end of the day, it's remembering that I am infinite, that I am here with an intended purpose, that it's almost like I sit back and can really understand the intention without carrying it, thinking that I'm on my own doing it or taking it personal.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I remember that and I find peace and I find a sense of calm that comes from knowing and living that. Even though like in the world, I'm like all over the place. Like this is, but it's like at that deep level, I know I'm infinite.
Mm-hmm.
I'm infinite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was that's what I think I was telling you guys a story about the like on 8/8, which is the Lionsgate, which is really big astrological alignment. I had been watching a Korean drama on TV, on the internet, and this one was about this king in Korea. Well, back when Korea was three separate kingdoms, and when the king died, the successor was only 7 years old. So the mother, gave him to a trusted guard to go off and train him until he could grow up, and come back and be the king. So she took over as the queen in the place of the faceless king. So he spent his whole life with nobody knowing who he was. And if anybody found out who he was, they had to kill him. They would just cut their head off because nobody needed to know who he was. And so he comes back. He's 22 years old, and he comes back and he ends up joining this group. It's kind of like the Secret Service or the special forces that are going to protect the kingdom. And he's part of that, and nobody knows he's the king. And then all of a sudden, when he realizes, he can see how all the people are being treated in the countryside. The regular people are just starving, and it's horrible. And he wants to change the way things are. Well, he finally goes in and steps up to his mother and goes and sits in the throne, and he claims his place on the throne and says, "I am the king of this kingdom, and I'm going to," so he claimed his space. And that to me is like, he realized he's an infinite being, and it's time for you to step up into who you are. And that happened on 8/8. And I just thought, oh my gosh, that's exactly what's going on. It's time for us to step up to who we are, what we're doing here, and then the infinite, the power that, we're just expressions of God. I mean, we're here ready to do what we need to do, and it's time for it to happen. So I thought that was a really, really good show that showed that's what he did. He just claimed it.
Yeah, it's stepping into that, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So where can we find your books if anyone is interested in getting your books?
They're on Amazon.
Okay.
And they're also on my website, which is called originalinspirationpublishing.com. They're on there. But you can get them on Amazon, and you can search it either under Heather M. Clarke. I put my initial, because there's a lot of Heather Clarks. And so in my books, I sign it Heather M. Clarke, and Clarke with an E, and then it'll show up there that way. You can get it.
And I'll put that links at the bottom. So if anyone is interested in buying either of those books, and do you have a journal that's for sale there too, or is that not out there?
I haven't yet, and I think it's on there. My son takes care of that on the website. I think it's on there too. It's basically, that one is just a bunch of it's like 30 days of sitting down and asking a question. Like we do classes where we just sit down and say, what do I need to know today? And then just start writing and let things come in. And so that's what it's just helping you understand that you do have inner guidance that's telling you. And it's just a practice thing that 30 different questions.
So it's like a companion to really be thoughtful and reflective of the stories, right? And the perspectives that you offer.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your books.
Thank you. I appreciate it.